It seems like every day there's a new YouTuber posting their wish list for what should be banned on the upcoming ban list. Usually after the World Championship, there's a huge scramble for people because they know that right after YCS Toronto, Konami almost always announces the new Forbidden and Limited list that's going to affect the competitive landscape for their months to come. This is especially true right now because people hate True Dracos and they hate Zodiacs. It's just true. The decks are really boring by this point, and as someone who likes to try to not complain about those, even I have to say that it's pretty stale right now, and because of that, a lot of people are making these wish lists, but today I wanted to do a different sort of wish list. I wanted to talk about 10 cards that I feel can come off the ban list. I don't think any of these are too crazy. I think they'd be fun, and depending on if they went to like limited or semi-limited or unlimited, they wouldn't shake things up too much except in some rogue decks. And that's why I think they'd be good choices. I'm not making any things like, I think Mass Driver should come off the list so we can have FTKs all over the place. But yeah, these are the 10 cards that I think should be off the ban list. Number 10, I should say, is Neospatian Grand Mole. This card has been limited for longer than I can remember. And when it was first out, it actually was super annoying. If your opponent could set up 2 Grand Moles on the field, you basically couldn't play the game anymore. Especially because the decks back then just weren't as powerful, so they couldn't special summon as much, and the Grand Moles would just keep bouncing the cards that you normal summon or set, so you had to have either a board wipe or a way to swarm the field with more than 2 monsters at a time to get rid of them. Right now, there aren't a lot of decks that play like boss monsters, but Grand Mole would still be a cool out to some pesky extra deck monsters, sort of like a compulsory evacuation device on legs. And it probably wouldn't be overpowered at 3. I don't think anyone would play it in their main deck. It might be a side deck pick, but I think it's been too long that it's been on the list. So that is the first card that I want off. Number 9 is Future Fusion. This card is completely unfair pre-errata, but post-errata, I think it's probably one of the most fair cards out there. And it also shows a unique card design from Konami's standpoint, where you're playing a really powerful card that has a delayed response time. Future Fusion, and the way it is right now, is sort of unplayable because it's at 1 copy per deck and you're almost never going to draw it. But if it was at 3 copies per deck, you could make some cool strategies built around resolving the Future Fusion and making sure it stays on the field for the 2 turns that it takes to actually work. Number 8 is Debris Dragon. This is one of my all-time favorite cards, and I was really happy when it eventually went to semi-limited, but I think it's time for it to become unlimited. This is sort of the same reason that I want Future Fusion to be unlimited. As Debris Dragon stands right now, it's a cool 2-of that you can include in decks that can make use of it, usually to make like a quick Black Rose Dragon. But if it's at 3 copies, you can reliably see it in your opening and mid-game hands, so you can actually build the deck around it, and that's one thing that I really want to see, because I do think it's a really cool 1-card Synchro or Exceed play. Now that Link Summoning is out, it's not like going to be overpowered or anything, and yeah, if this card comes to 3, and it might eventually, I will definitely be making a deck around it. Coming in at number 7, Performage Damage Juggler. Now, people have mixed reactions about this, but I actually think Performage Plushfire was way more of a problem card. Damage Juggler, I think, easily can come back to 1 copy per deck and not really affect things too much. Maybe I'm a little biased here because I think it's one of the best cards to send with Brilliant Fusion, and I do really miss sending it with Brilliant Fusion. Trick Clown just doesn't do the same thing. Damage Juggler is unhealthy at 3, but as a limited 1-of that you probably won't draw, and if you're sending with Brilliant Fusion, you're not getting use of its damage blocking effect. I think it's completely fair. Next on the list, we have Mathematician. Mathematician is a card that was in so many different strategies that I played over the years, and it was very sad when it eventually got limited. I think at the time that it got limited, it definitely deserved it, but I also think it's time for it to come back. It's just such a versatile, cool card. It's a Foolish Burial on legs, it's a 1500 attack beater, and it gets you a free draw when it dies. Very similar to Card Trooper, another one of my favorite cards. And I don't know, Mathematician, it's never going to blow your opponent out of the water. It's not going to like +7 on them, but it just does so much for such a good normal summon. And I really like cards like this that don't just overpower your opponent, don't overwhelm your opponent, but definitely strengthen a lot of rogue strategies. If Mathematician came to 3, it would definitely be an auto-include in like Burning Abyss, and if you want to play Shaddolls, and a whole slew of other graveyard-based strategies, possibly even like Light Sworns or something, and I think that'd be pretty cool. Coming in at number 5, I believe, we have Dark Arm Dragon. Now, this card has been on the ban list for so long. No one's playing it right now. It's just not a card that you want to see when it's at 1. If it was semi-limited, people might be playing it, but still probably not. There's so much setup that goes into summoning this card. Back in the day, it was way too good when it came out, especially when it's at 3, even when it was semi-limited, just because there wasn't so much spot removal. But Dark Arm Dragon is basically just a Trident with a bigger body. Maybe that's oversimplifying it a little too much, but that's pretty much what it is. It doesn't really, I mean, it requires your opponent to have cards to actually plus off of. Requires graveyard setup that can be potentially really give you some awkward hands, especially in the opening turns. It's not even good going first, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now is all about going first. I think Dark Arm Dragon at 2 or 3 per deck could be, once again, like Debris Dragon and Future Fusion, where then you could actually reliably play it in strategies and build those strategies around summoning it. Would it be overpowered? Absolutely not. Would it be playable? Yes. Number 4 is another card that's a dragon, and that is Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. Red Eyes is, I don't know, it's in a weird spot. It's a -1 to summon, and there are a couple ways you can play around that, but no matter how you look at it, it's a -1 to summon, and then it only breaks even when you get that revival effect. So if your opponent stops it with like a Trident or a Bottomless Trap Hole or a Solemn Strike, anything basically, you've taken a straight -2, and that's really bad. Its revival effect isn't even too powerful. It's just a Monster Reborn basically. And there aren't a lot of dragon decks right now, but I don't know. I think Chaos Dragons are a deck that I'm really interested in with Link Summoning, and I think that if Red Eyes Darkest Metal Dragon went to 2 or 3 copies per deck, Chaos Dragons could be a lot more threatening. The little Chaos Dragons, the level 4 guys, are really good with Link monsters because they search themselves when they go to the grave, and if you had 3 of those guys, each of them, and then Red Eyes and all the other Chaos Dragon friends, and with possibly with Light Sworns, you can make a really cool rogue deck that, once again, wouldn't just break the meta game. I think that if you think back to when Red Eyes was limited, I mean, it was mainly limited to stop Heretics from just abusing the crap out of it. I don't think that's a problem anymore. So I think it's time for this card to either come to 2 or 3 copies per deck, especially with Link Summoning really restricting extra deck spam. Number 3 is probably pretty unsurprising here. And these last 3 are fairly unsurprising, but Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal. It's no secret that Burning Abyss are in a really rough spot right now. With Link Summoning, there's basically no way to play Burning Abyss in a tournament. Though that deck overall has just been really bad recently. It just wasn't fast enough. It wasn't consistent enough. You have Seer and Graf on the Forbidden Limited list, and Tour Guide for that matter, and Beatrice. They have 4 cards that are really important, all limited, and it just makes it really hard to play Burning Abyss. And then Link Summoning comes along and makes it virtually impossible, because now you can't summon multiple Dantes without making a Link monster. But, oh wait, when you have a Link monster in the field, you can't summon any of your Burning Abyss monsters. Now, I know people keep saying, well, you can just summon Fiendish Rhino, but guess what? Fiendish Rhino is a normal summon. You don't always have your normal summon, and your opponent can just kill it and wipe your whole board, and it's just really frustrating. So until they make a Burning Abyss Link monster, which I don't know if they'll do, until they do that, though, I think it's pretty safe for Beatrice to come back at 2, possibly 3 copies per deck. It's just a card that could make Burning Abyss, like, not terrible. 1 Beatrice by itself wouldn't be super overpowered, and I don't know. I like this card, and maybe it's just because I love Burning Abyss so much, but I think that with Link Summoning in place, Beatrice would not be a problem card at 2, and I'm not even sure if that'd be enough to make people play Burning Abyss. I think they would actually need, like, a really good Link monster, but for the people that do want to play Burning Abyss, I think that'd be a good bone to throw them. And number 2 on the list is El Shaddoll Construct. Now, I admit, I love Shaddolls. I had some of the most fun playing Yu-Gi-Oh! When Norden came out, and we had all the Perform Mages, and Norden, and Shaddolls, and Nekroz was still really good, and I thought that was a really cool dynamic between Shaddolls and Nekroz, where they both were countering each other in different ways. Shaddolls had their water fusion monster, Nekroz obviously had like Unicorn and Colossalos, and I don't know, I liked that sort of dynamic where they both had their advantages and disadvantages, but I always loved Shaddolls, and Construct is good for all the reasons that Brilliant Fusion is good. Sending a light monster to the grave is just really fun, And if it came back to 1 copy per deck, honestly, I don't think anyone would play Shadowless at that point. But at least it would make Shaddoll Fusion a splashable side deck card. I could very easily see if Construct came back to 1, people side decking a couple Shaddoll Fusions and like a Shaddoll Beast in like a Light Sworn or any light deck really, just to punish your opponent for playing out of the extra deck. The Infernoid Shaddoll Fusion card, which I do not know the name of, sorry. That card didn't even see that much play. A lot of people said it was more the threat of your opponent having it than them actually having it that won them the game. And Shaddoll Fusion, I think, is sort of a underpowered version of that card, just because the Shadolls themselves are pretty bricky, and especially if El Shaddoll Fusion stays at 1, I think Construct can very easily come back to 1 and not affect too much, while at least giving Shaddoll players a chance to play the deck that they know and love so much. Number 1 on the list can be no other. And I'm sure plenty of people when they opened this video, they commented, I bet I know who number 1 is. And yes, it is Elemental Hero Stratos. Now, before you rejoice, I just want to say that I don't particularly like Elemental Hero Stratos, and I don't think it would even super affect heroes as a strategy. I think that Shadow Mist, in a lot of cases, just does what Stratos does, but better. However, Stratos at this point has become, and maybe you guys weren't playing when all the Blackwing cards were limited. I mean, there was a point when like Kalut and Black Whirlwind and Gale were all on the ban list, and people kept saying, every ban list this would happen. They would say, if Kalut was at 2, Blackwings would be good. Or, if Whirlwind was at 3, Blackwings would be good. And you know what? Eventually, Konami gave Blackwing players all those cards at 3, and guess what? The deck didn't do anything. Nothing. And I feel like Stratos is like that. I'm really sick of people saying, if Stratos was at 1, heroes, they'd be everywhere. I don't want to hear that. If Stratos was at 1, nothing would happen, but I am sick of the memes. I've been hearing them for so long now. I'm pretty sure Stratos got banned on that huge list that hit Dragon Lords and Spellbooks, if I remember correctly. So I've been hearing about Stratos for almost 5 years, and I'm pretty sick of it. So can we just give him back to 1 so people will shut up? Like, I don't think he needs to go to 2 or 3 ever. That's probably too good, because it's the main thing with Stratos, and people always compare Stratos to cards like Soul Eating Oviraptor, Dolce Mageline, Satellar Knight, Deneb, any card that searches a normal summon or a special summon. They always compare it to those cards, and I think it's a bit unfair, because the problem with Stratos isn't that it's a Stratos, it's that it's the only Stratos that I can think of that is a not hard once per turn, and that can search itself, and that get its effect on special summon. Because obviously Dolce Mageline searches itself, but it's only a normal summon. And Stratos, I think the reason it's on the ban list is because it's way too versatile and it's not restricted enough. I'm not sure if it'll ever come off, but I know in the OCG list they have 2 Stratos, and they seem to be doing fine. So yeah, I just want this card off the list. People like shut up and stop posting memes about it, which is, I'm aware, opening myself up for many memes about Stratos, but it's whatever. And anyway, though, that is my top 10 cards that I want to see off the ban list. I'm sure many of you have already typed in the comments what cards you want to see off, but if you haven't done that already, please let me know what your guilty pleasures are on the ban list, and what crazy decks you would make if certain cards went to 3, and let me know how you feel about my garbage decisions. I'll see you guys later. Bye.